All right, good morning, everyone. The House Committee on Higher Education will come to order, please. And the clerk will take attendance.
Chair Lambo.
Present.
Representative Brinkins.
Present.
Colzar.
Here.
Scott.
Present.
Burns.
Here.
Kofia.
Here.
Hill.
Here.
McDonald.
Present.
Pies.
Present.
Vanderwall.
Present.
Paquette.
Here.
Zorn.
Here.
Bruck.
Present.
Pisana.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have 14 members present and a quorum.
Thank you. And it sounds like we have a delay on our broadcast, maybe. All right, moving right along, Representative Reingans moves to approve the minutes of the September 20 meeting. Seeing no objection, so ordered. And today we are going to take up testimony. First, Representative Colazar moves to adopt substitute H3 for HB 4816. So let's get that in the books. Clerk, if you can take the roll.
Chair Glenville.
Yes.
Representative Brinkins.
Yes.
Colzar.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Kofia.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes.
Pies.
Yes.
Vanderwall.
Yes.
Paquette. Zorn.
Yes.
Bruck.
Yay.
Pisana.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 13 yeas, 0 nays, 0 passed, the substitute is adopted.
Thank you. And we will also be addressing 4844. So Representative McDonald moves to adopt substitute H1 for HB 4844. Again, clerk, if you can please call the roll.
Chair Glenville.
Yep. Yes.
Representative Reingans.
Yes.
Colzar.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Casual
Kofia.
with the chair.
Kofia.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes.
Pies.
Yes.
Vanderwall.
Yes.
Paquette. Zorn.
Yes.
Bruck.
Yay.
Pisana.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 13 yeas, 0 nays, 0 passed, substitute is adopted.
Very good. So continuing on, we are going to take up testimony on both these bills, HB 4816 and HB 4844. You might recall we did discuss these bills. These are the name, image, likeness bills that we had some discussion on back in the spring. So I thought it would be worth our time, now that they've been adjusted a little bit, and it's been a couple months, to come back to this conversation and get the full testimony, of course, again. So first, we're going to have Representative Whitwer come up to give us testimony on her bill, HB 4844. And did you have a guest with you today? Yes. Okay. Thank you. So when you are ready.
Thank you, Chair, for having me today and the committee. I do have Alex here from MSU that can answer any questions that you have. I'm thankful for the opportunity to come back in front of everyone. Allowing student athletes to profit from their own name, image, likeness rights, providing them with new opportunities and potential revenue streams is what we're talking about today. The primary objective of the NIL legislation is to empower student athletes by recognizing their rights to control and monetize their own NIL. This move acknowledges the value and marketability of student athletes' personal brand and allows them to capitalize on their popularity, endorsements, and other business ventures. The NIL legislation promotes fairness and equity among student athletes. Previously, colleges and universities profited significantly from the athletic abilities and performances of their student athletes, while the athletes themselves were unable to benefit financially. With the new legislation in place, student athletes can now receive compensation that reflects their market value, leveling the playing field and providing a more equitable system. The introduction of the NIL legislation opens up new economic opportunities for student athletes. They can now enter into endorsement deals, monetize their social media presence, participate in commercial activities, and explore various entrepreneurial ventures. These opportunities not only provide financial support during their college years, but also prepare them for a future beyond athletics by gaining valuable business and marketing experience. The NIL legislation aligns with the educational mission of post-secondary institutions by allowing student athletes to engage in entrepreneurial activities and pursue business opportunities related to their NIL. Colleges and universities promote an environment that encourages creativity, innovation, and real-world learning experiences. This exposure can complement their academic education and provide them with a holistic skill set. With the NIL legislation in place, Michigan's post-secondary schools gain a competitive edge in recruiting top student athletes. The opportunity for student athletes to profit from their NIL rights becomes an attractive factor when considering different colleges and universities. This could potentially lead to the recruitment of more talented athletes, which in turn can enhance the overall competitiveness and reputation of Michigan's post-secondary sports programs. While the NIL legislation brings many benefits, it also necessitates the establishment of a regulatory framework to ensure compliance and avoid potential abuses. It is crucial to strike a balance between allowing student athletes to benefit from their NIL while maintaining the integrity of college athletics. Clear guidelines and monitoring mechanisms should be implemented to prevent conflict of interest, unfair practices, and undue influence from external parties. Thank you for consideration of the legislation, and we will be happy to take questions.
Thank you so much. And as you started out saying, we are here to discuss name, image, and likeness. So I would ask members of the committee to keep your questions on that topic this morning. We are on a little bit of a timeline as well, so we can get folks out to some mandatory training today. So are there any questions? Rep. Kofia.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Rep. Whitwer, for bringing this legislation to us today, as well as Rep. Wilson. Mostly, I just want to say I appreciate this legislation because it's so important that we do have equity for our athletes to sort of end past practice. One question I had was tell us a little bit more about why you're limiting the notice requirement to contracts worth $1,000 or more. So if you could just go into a little detail about why you landed at that particular figure.
Yeah, so currently the legislation requires, excuse me, all deals from our student athletes to be disclosed to any institution. We know as we've worked through this process over the several years, there are some deals that are as small as, our student athletes are tweeting out a promo code and they're receiving a piece of clothing in return. And those are just going unreported because they're so small. And we don't want our student athletes to run afoul of any type of state law. So by increasing the threshold, we can really monitor those contracts that we need to know about that have large value. And those student athletes who fail to, report that they got a t-shirt or a free meal aren't going to run afoul of state law.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Representative Bruck.
Thank you for being here today and explaining things. On the 1,000, is that just strictly compensation, or would that also include gifts and like manners?
Sure. It would be any value that would be $1,000. So if they got $1,000 worth of gear, if they got $1,000 worth of food, of actual cash dollars, it would be any deal that is worth $1,000 value.
Okay. I was just making sure it was that and the equivalent. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions today? All right. Seeing none. Thank you both for being here today. And let me read in our cards. We have one from Michigan High School Athletic Association, not wishing to speak, supporting the bill. So with that, let's move forward to Representative Wilson, who will be giving us testimony on 4816. If you come on up and when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to come before the committee one more time. Back in June, we went over a lot of the details in the legislation, but just a brief overview. I think Rep. Whitwer kind of hit a lot of the points, but obviously we're not talking about collegiate athletes who are adults. We're talking about our teenagers who are playing in high school sports. We want to make sure we have enough safeguards in place. And based on last testimony, we've been working very closely with the Michigan High School Athletic Association to make sure those safeguards are in place, and that's why you'll see a H3 substitute in front of you. And I just want to make mention of some of those activities or categories that high school athletes would not be able to enter into contracts for in regards to alcohol, tobacco, adult entertainment, controlled substances, gambling, firearms, and also we'll be adding in, at the request of Rep. Burns, also supplements as well. So we also don't want to want to make sure that we're not having 700 and some odd different high school coaches, athletic directors, superintendents getting involved in these contracts. We want everything to be reviewed and come up to the state level at the Michigan High School Athletic Association level for any reviews or denials, approvals. We don't want any ethical issues on the local level. We want to keep it outside of that. But we also acknowledge that in this changing age, we have about 20 states that have implemented the high school version, and athletes should get compensated for their name, image, and likeness. But obviously, like I just mentioned, we're talking about high school athletes, and we want to make sure safeguards are in place. So that's what you see before you as a substitute. And I think I'll stop there if you want to have any questions, Madam Chair.
Sure, and before we jump into that, let me just correct myself. The Michigan High School Athletic Association actually supports this bill. So, and then we do have a question from Minority Vice Chair Vanderwall.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here. Just a kind of real quick question. We're talking a lot of students here that are minors, and my concern or my question is if we start seeing money tossed in their direction, do we really want to potentially affect these young people in decisions that they can make as a high school student that could potentially carry on and harm them when they become adults? So I'm just curious what provisions you've put in this bill as we read through it to ensure that we solve that issue.
Can you kind of rephrase that or kind of say that again?
Sure. I guess I'll just read what I wrote down. Do you believe it's right to allow minors to make potentially career-altering decisions in their youth with the influence of large corporations or local businesses?
Okay. Also in this legislation, you'll find that actually this is one of the suggestions of Michigan High School Athletic Association is that we make sure that any contracts, any deals, any promotions, all this needs to take place on non-instructional time, non-athletic time, team, when they're with their teams. This has to be treated as when they have a job or they're working. You're not going to see where they have stuff on their, emblems on their jerseys or banner. They're not going to. We made sure that we're putting in there that they can't incorporate what they're doing in their personal life, actually, with their school athletics or their school instructional time as well.
Quick follow-up. The other piece of that is what provision have we put in then? Is there a guardian or a parent that has to sign off on this, or is this a decision they can make on their own?
So we haven't stripped away any parental rights. Parents will still have to be involved in entering any contracts of a youth. So.
Thank you. And, it's an interesting question you ask, and it got me just thinking for a second. We ask our high school students to make career and life-altering decisions, when they're choosing even their college, and the amount of money that can be involved in scholarships that are sent their way. I feel like it's maybe a similar thing if you have a student who's at that level of athletics, that they are being given, some financial gain from that. Like, it feels a little bit the same to me, but like I said, that just popped in my head, so maybe I need to think about it some more. Rep. Hill.
Thank you, and thanks for bringing this forward, and I'm really glad we're having these conversations. It's really important. My question is, kind of following on that, is the boundaries around student-athlete versus any other young person. There's a lot of young girls making a lot of money on makeup, for example, and hair products and things. And also the issue of having an injury. And like being on the team and then not being on the team, does that also impact? So one is it only student athletes who are playing for the school? Or where's that boundary, and then what about injuries?
Yeah, so student athletes, we made sure that was highlighted in the bill, so student athletes. And then on the other part, say the other part again. Hold on. That's the question.
Right, thinking about, you're on the injured reserve.
Yes.
Kind of idea. Is that an issue ever? That's what
and so actually one of the provisions we'll be adding is based on Michigan High School Athletic Association actually mentioning something very similar, which is making sure that any NIL deals or compensation is not based on performance, or you got to score this many points and you get this deal. We're cutting all that out. So we're making sure that it's totally separate from what they're actually doing in school for the team, for their school.
Glad to hear that. Thank you.
All right, oh yes, Representative Zorn.
Thank you. At what point do we consider then, if this would be enacted, at what point would we consider a person to be professional? How does that occur? What makes them a professional, a paid professional or a paid amateur?
Well, I think when you really look at how you worded that, professional athlete, they're actually paid for their performance. This is not paid for performance. This is for sponsorships for their name, image, and likeness. And so I think that's where you have the difference of a professional athlete and what we're trying to do here with collegiate athletes and high school athletes.
Follow-up, please. As a follow-up, a amateur athlete, in order to get these awards, they would have to be playing some pretty good sport. Not everyone is going to be able to do that.
Right.
In my estimation, they're being paid for running a good game, for doing a good job. Explain to me what I'm missing here. That it seems like it's the same thing we're talking about.
Yeah, what we found in the other 20 states that have implemented this is that the contracts that were entered into actually ended up being those athletes who have high social media influence. So they're good athletes, but they also have high influence on social media. And so and when you're thinking as a business owner, a company, a corporation, the person that you want to promote your sportswear, your shoes, or whatever it is that they enter into, you want somebody that actually has some kind of influence for others to see that emblem or whatever it is. So it's not just for just their performance as an athlete. If you think about it from a corporation standpoint, there's this other factor in there as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So just to clarify that, I think it brings us back to the name of the bill, right? They are being compensated for their name, image, and likeness. So, I mean, in theory, it could be maybe a not very well-performing athlete who happens to have a high social media presence or a large social media presence, which I think, again, speaks to this shift we've seen in culture and how we advertise and influence, particularly in our youth, the impact that some of those kids can have.
Right.
Thank you. Representative Bruck.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm sorry, I think I remember asking a lot of questions last time too, so I appreciate a lot of the updates on the amendments as well. I'm trying to see, is the school prohibited from benefiting from this?
Yes, it is in the language that they're
Okay.
prohibited from benefiting.
Okay.
This is only for the student athlete.
And then one question on the amendment, it's the third from the bottom, specify the gosh, I can't put words together. Prohibiting on student athletes signing a contract, displaying, sponsor. As far as like uniforms, the school has
Oh,
like a policy, you have to wear, their uniforms. Is this prohibiting the schools from allowing them to put like an emblem on their uniform?
This doesn't prohibit the school from implementing any kind of policies they may have, but this does prevent the student from trying to, whatever contract they've entered into, now they want to advertise for some company separately. So they can't do that as a student athlete, but if a
Okay,
school
I was
has
trying
some-
to,
yeah,
Maybe, sorry, I misunderstood that then. Okay, so it prohibits the student from forcing or that contract from being, I guess,
forced on.
snowballing onto
yeah.
the school system or
Correct,
that
yeah.
superintendent or their principal. All right, cool beans. Thank you so much, Rep. Wilson, for that. Thank you, Chair.
Again, just to clarify that, so an example might be if a student athlete puts a sticker for a particular energy drink on their equipment, that would not be allowed because it's not the whole
Correct.
team
That would
or
be
the whole
prohibited.
school that's engaging in that. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, seeing none. Let me see, what do we got next? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, again, just to correct that, the card we read in for Michigan High School Athletic Association is related to Rep. Wilson's bill. And I don't believe we have any absent members today. Yeah. He's online. Yeah, well, thank you. In that case, I believe we're all set. So we will stand adjourned.